offshore patrol vessel. Humble craft, often tasked with the more mundane but vital maritime security tasks in national EEZs, are an often overlooked element to a force's structure, the limelight captured by the fleet's destroyer and frigate thoroughbreds. But the market exists. From the UK River Batch 2, Brazil's Amazonas, or Australia's Arafura class, countries are learning how to put such platforms to use, particularly relevant these days in such a cost-sensitive environment. So then, let's talk about this market. And time to introduce Shephard Senior Naval Analyst Harriet Hayward. Harriet, hi again.
Thank you for having me.
Numbers first then. What regions look good for an OPV? Which markets are on the up and which might even be dipping, if such a thing can happen these days?
Well, that's interesting, actually, because if we look at the proportion of OPV spending over the next 10 years, we've got Asia sitting there as the biggest spender. They make up a 36% share of the market in 10 years, followed closely by Europe and North America. But really, if you're looking for any opportunities, Europe doesn't really have much. They are made up of major naval OPV programs at the moment. These will come to an end eventually, and there's not really any further requirements that we know of at the moment. Similarly, with North America, there's not a huge amount of opportunities. We then look at Asia. Yes, there will always be more growth. They are continuing to look like they will grow. Where these programs are is slightly more difficult to tell. But regions where they're showing very little way in the way of spending, we've got South America and the Middle East and Africa, which make up approximately a 3% share of the market over the next 10 years. But they also have upcoming programs, or certainly gaps where there are to be programs in the future. So this is where you're expecting to see more growth in the market and perhaps more opportunities, especially in South America.
So then, why is this the case? Why do you think the OPV is an attractive proposition for such navies these days? Not just obviously in developing, for countries looking to develop capability and capacity, but also for the top tier operators who also seem to find a need or a use for an OPV.
The thing is, with an OPV, there's such a broad spectrum of capability. You've got the high end, which certainly a lot of Western European countries are going for, and you've got much more of the lower end, where platforms are a fraction of the cost of certain larger platforms, but they cover a range of capabilities, whether it's more patrol-based, or they even stretch as far as competing with what frigates offer and corvettes. So you have some common ground with other platforms, and they certainly are much easier to procure in some cases. So I think if you're looking for a more flexible approach, the OPV is having that impact on the market at the moment, where it's a much easier platform and that can offer you a range of different capabilities that perhaps you don't need from a larger platform.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's your definition of OPV, isn't it? I mean, in the strictest sense of it, an OPV is tasked with easy patrol, with constabulary missions, with fisheries protection, that sort of thing. Look at platforms like the PPA, the Italian Navy's PPA, which is a range of vessels configured in light plus, and full modes. But these are sizable platforms. They're the best part of 5,000 tons. Very significant frigate capable sensors and weapon systems. You've got AESA radars, towed sonar arrays, ASW torpedoes, 16-cell VLS, 127mm naval main gun. Can we really call the PPA an OPV? Because that's got capabilities which are effectively frigates at this point.
No, exactly. That was the case I was going to make. I don't think the PPA really fits into the same category as the rest of the OPVs. Not even within Western Europe, it stands alone. And really, there's a constant arguments over whether this really is more of a frigate than it is an OPV. It's quite a big jump, but if you compare it across to other OPVs, it's completely different.
What sort of market shares do companies such as Darman, for example, have? Which companies are finding best success in these emerging and growing markets?
Well, Darman is a bit of an exception. They've got subsidiaries and contacts in multiple different countries. They've got yards in different countries, and that has certainly played to their advantage. They've been extremely successful on the OPV market, and I don't think this is simply down to having such a large portfolio and specializing in OPVs and having that success in that way. It's simply where they've got their contacts, where they've got their shipyards that really play to their advantage. As countries are looking to build much more, they're looking towards domestic shipbuilding to spread their money within their own country. That's where Darman has done a particularly good job. They've got those relationships, they've got the contacts with the local shipyards, so their designs are much easier, and they can sell these designs under the pretense that they are going to be built locally. So it's not just Darman collecting all the income for it; you will be spreading your money within your own economy. they're of course trying this technique in multiple different places. They're trying their best with South America, Asia. They've made some ground in Asia as well. Western Europe, they've made some. They're a European based company. That's not particularly their strongest market, I wouldn't say, but that's interesting. They're certainly trying to spread their influence even further afield as well.
Great points. Yeah. On this sort of idea of well, say Western or European companies leveraging their experience in emerging markets, you see a lot of these opportunities for joint ventures or split builds where you might see the first two or three or small number of platforms built by, let's say, Diamond, but by a Western European manufacturer, and then the remainder of that program goes to the country of origin, goes to the to the country that's looking to build up its industrial capacity. That's really on the rise at this point, isn't it?
Yep, certainly within Asia, we're looking for countries who are really wanting to build their shipbuilding industry. They don't have the experience, starting on platforms where the designs can be bought and the experience can be bought under, transfer of technology agreements is certainly on the rise within Asia. We're seeing it in South America a lot as well. And I think these countries are certainly looking to build their industrial base. They need the experience, and this is the best way to go about it. I think this is where OPVs come in particularly handy, actually. It's not a large platform, but it is still a significant naval platform. So you're getting your experience there, and you're going to get a good platform out of it. But certainly in terms of building, it's a gateway towards bigger naval platforms as you're looking to expand your knowledge and ability to build these sorts of platforms.
100%. I mean, you don't need to even to look at developing countries. Look at the UK, for example. It used the River Class Batch 2 to keep its workforce on the Clyde fit and ready for the Type 26 build. So it's absolutely a very useful platform, both for the services, but also for the industry to actually develop as well. Where do you see, just finally, where do you see this market for OPVs heading in terms of demand and platform builds? What are we going to see? Are we going to see this continued split builds, let's say, or might you see further down the line, 5 years from now, let's say, more countries with that knowledge, with that capacity to design, develop, and manufacture their own OPVs, but also be new competitors for the global market, for the established likes of Diamond and people like that, companies like that?
I mean, if you look at the amount of countries or shipyards even that are involved in OPV projects or putting in bids for OPV projects, we're talking in excess of 40 odd shipyards. I mean, that's quite a lot to compete against. At the moment, over the next 10 years, it's still going to be your Western type, shipyards, South Korea moving in there as well, looking for these transfer of technology agreements to help. But if you're looking for success on the OPV market, you're best offering your design with the chance to build locally. I think that's certainly going to be the predominant factor in the next 10 years. But once that's gone through the motions, we've got the majority of shipyards capable of building these types of platforms, then I think we will see a change. And then you will be looking that shipyards will be building locally. So this is where I think more subsidiaries and having a shipyard in that country makes a big difference. This is what Diamond's tried anyway. Certainly other shipyards and designers are trying to go down the same path. I think that's where expansion is going to happen. But I don't think buying and having it built elsewhere is going to be the way forward certainly in the smaller end of the market.
Yeah, I agree. Very interesting conversation, Harriet. Thanks a lot for that. I have to say, with my maritime hat on, OPVs have to be my most favoured type of ship, I have to say. I know people always gravitate towards carriers and destroyers and frigates and stuff like that, but I think if you don't have a good maritime security solution, you've got nothing, basically. So, a very interesting conversation. Thanks a lot, Harriet. Catch you soon.